Welcome to Days of Roar, a Detroit Tiger podcast brought to you by the Detroit Free Press. My name is Mark Gorash. I am here with Free Press beat writer Evan Petzold on the road this week as the Tigers take the road show first to Kansas City and now to the beautiful city of Chicago. Hopefully my grandchildren will go to a game there. But Ev, you're back on the road. Been a while. You got to see a whole one run in the last 18 innings. Yet the Tigers won another series. Let's dive into it.
It's been a good week of baseball for the Detroit Tigers. A 5-1 record this week, 3-0 against the San Francisco Giants at Comerica Park, and then 2-1 against the Kansas City Royals at Kauffman Stadium. All 6 games decided by 2 runs or fewer. The Tigers won 5 of them. The game of the week for me, it was Friday, May 30th against the Royals. It was Seth Lugo versus Casey Mize in that series opener, and you would have thought that it would have been a pitcher's duel. Instead, you have both Casey Mize and Seth Lugo out of the game after 10 outs apiece. So that's 3 1/3 innings for both of those pitchers. It was a grind it out type of game where the Tigers just grinded it out. I love the late at-bats from Spencer Torkelson in that game. He made it 5-3 in the 5th inning with an RBI single where he just refused to chase down and away. And then when he got a pitch on the inner third, it was down at the bottom of the zone, but it was still in the zone, inner third. He tossed it into left field for an RBI single. And then he made it 6-4 in the 8th inning with a solo home run. Same situation. The Royals are trying to bait him down and away, down and away, down and away. Spencer Torkelson refuses to chase. And then that pitcher leaves a changeup over the middle and he crushes it for his 14th home run. Outstanding at bats, hat tip to Torque. He would have been chasing those pitches down and away last season. That's the big difference. He has himself in a good hitting position with his stance in the batter's box, and he's trusting himself to execute his approach of just hitting the ball over the second baseman's head. It's all coming together. He's got the power. He's got the contact. He is becoming a hitter who is hitting for power. And I think that's the one thing that stands out to me about what Spencer Torkelson is doing. We saw it in that game, Friday's series opener against the Royals. He was a huge factor in helping the Tigers get that win in the series opener against the Royals. And he's showing no signs of slowing down. And then you look ahead, the Tigers, they are already 18 games above 500. And the schedule only gets easier in June. You got the Chicago White Sox. That series about to start right now. Baltimore Orioles, Cincinnati Reds, Pittsburgh Pirates. I like the Cincinnati Reds. Don't sleep on them. They're 29-31, but they've got a +30 run differential, and they've got Terry Francona as their manager. They're about to get Christian Encarnacion Strand back from an injury. The pitching is solid. Andrew Abbott, Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Nick Martinez, and then you got Ellie De La Cruz, who's always a problem, hitting 250, 260 with 12 homers in 60 games. I like the Reds a lot. Spencer Steer, Matt McClain, Gavin Lux, all guys that interest me as they continue developing. So don't sleep on the Reds. But yeah, the Tigers' schedule is going to get a little bit easier. And like I said, they're 18 games above 500. They're way out in first place in the American League Central right now. All things are going well. I'm really stoked for the upcoming series against the Chicago Cubs at Comerica Park. That Friday game is going to be awesome. Tigers fans out there, if there's a game to go to coming up, it is Friday at Comerica Park because you got Tarik Skubal pitching for the Tigers, and you already know the Cubs are going to have their best 2 left-handed hitters, Kyle Tucker, Pete Crow Armstrong, in that lineup. That should be a fun way to kick off the 3-game series. But good baseball for the Tigers, a 5-1 record this week. You liked what they did against the San Francisco Giants. You like what they did against the Kansas City Royals. A lot of close games, but the Tigers just keep winning them.
Well, a lot of fun this week. And if you like watching the Puppet Master play chess, he played chess all week, won 5 one-run games, got second-guessed in the only game he didn't win. And as far as Spencer Torkelson, holy smokes. I think we need to get Torque on the show because we just both need to just tell him how good he is, because holy smokes, if there's a most valuable Tiger in the first 2 months of the season, if his name is not Spencer Torkelson, understanding that Scoobs has been ridiculous and Riley Greene has even better numbers than Torque. But Torque just keeps coming up with big at bat after big at bat after big at bat. And when they need it most, he just keeps coming up with swings. So My hat tip of the week, Spencer Torkelson. Holy smokes, how many times can you save their bacon in impact winning?
But look at what he's doing, Mark. I mean, he's played 58 games, and it's a 235 batting average, career high, 346 on base percentage, career high, 510 slugging percentage, career high, an 855 OPS, career high. Like, he's raking across the board. He's got 14 home runs in those 58 games. He's going to hit 40 home runs this season if he keeps this up, and he's doing that while he's hitting, 230, 240. Like, you're going to take that all day long. The defense is good at first base as well. You're right. Hat tip to Spencer Torkelson. He is doing everything right for the Tigers.
I just want to say to you guys that I've been in a little Twitter DM baseball chat called Baseball and Judgment for about 12 years with some of your favorite podcasters and baseball people on Twitter, separate from Evan Petzold. And about a month into the season, we had a discussion with some pretty smart people. Is Spencer Torkelson going to keep it up? And I have never really been a huge Torque guy, but based upon what I watched in spring training, the adjustments, the changes, my answer in pretty much alone in this thought process was yes. Guess what? Here's my next prediction about it. Watching the at-bats, watching the consistency, watching what's going on. He's hitting 235. My prediction is he ends up hitting between 250 and 260 for the year. Same power, even more walks. So if you like what went on the first 2 months, it's only going to get better, not worse. So like to see some Kerry Bonds Carpenter getting some better swings, but it's not unusual for him to go 60 or 70 at bats from time to time. But yeah, schedule getting easier. Hopefully the intensity maintains itself, because a lot of times after you play this many intense games for 60 days, you tend to, against lesser competition, not bring the same level of commitment. We'll see how AJ manages that part of it. It's not his first rodeo with this kind of stuff. If you remember how good Houston was, they were real good for a long time. So this is not AJ Hinch's first time with a really good team. So get ready. Should be interesting. I wonder how many games the Tigers can win if they can maintain the quality of play that they're demonstrating here these first 60 days and the last 45 days of 2024 of. All right, let's jump into question one of the big two. Should the Tigers allow Tarik Skubal to pitch deeper into games? Evan discussed this with Justin Verlander, who said, ride that horse, baby. Of course he did. But what do we think about Skubal's usage? Were you mad they removed him at 90 pitches the other day? He's the best pitcher in the world. Evan Petzold, you did a lot of homework on this. You wrote a really interesting piece on it. You talked to AJ. He had some great things to say. You talked to JV. He, of course, had a lot of old school things to say. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, let's walk all the way through it. I mean, this goes back to May 25th when Tarik Skubal threw the complete game shutout on 94 pitches. He was at 85 pitches going into the ninth inning. So, of course, manager AJ Hinch sends him out for the ninth, and he finishes the complete game shutout on 94 pitches. It's called a Maddox, and Tarik Skubal got the job done. The next day, former Tigers ace Justin Verlander comes to town with the San Francisco Giants, and he has a lot to say about current Tigers ace Tarik Skubal. Here's what Verlander said when I talked to him.
Is he the only starter since the stars have gotten older, the previous generation that has kind of really cemented himself and made a name for himself as a starting pitcher? Maybe.
What does doing that mean?
What I mean by that is you have to do some really cool as a starter, and in today's game, you're not really afforded that opportunity very often. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Most guys, they're getting pulled at the fifth or sixth inning, and not going deep into games and not really doing anything that makes headlines. Your team wins. You did an okay job, but you're not getting shown on ESPN and all the national news outlets to make a name for yourself, because you're not really doing anything. Not that that's what matters, but I think it's good for the game. Back to your question, I think I really love seeing guys do that. 95 pitches.
But imagine if it would have been 110, he would have pulled, it wouldn't happen.
Well, maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, maybe he affords himself the opportunity. I don't know.
He probably deserves it, you'd think, right? Considering,
obviously you got to protect guys, and that's kind of the name of the game. But I was so grateful for Jim Leland giving me the opportunity to throw 120 pitches a game. Even at that time, that was a little old school. But like, had he not been my manager, I might not have never had the opportunity to show what I can do. And that was, I think, what separated me from a lot of guys was my ability to throw that many pitches and get stronger as the game went on and do it every 5 days. My point being is, like, he's obviously special. So, like, who knows what his limit is. It's not cookie cutter. Starting pitchers aren't cookie cutter. Like,
not one size fits all.
Right. Some guys get tired at 80 pitches, and you can see them laboring. Some guys never get tired. It's like, Nolan Ryan was throwing 300 pitches a game. Yeah. So, like,
some guys pitch at 42.
Right. Right. I mean, honestly, like, So, yes, I would love to see. I do appreciate seeing him go deeper in games and want to do that. I think that's, as a starting pitcher, for me, like, getting deep in games was something I always tried to do. It was less about, I want to have 0 runs given up, and more about going deep in the game. So, you sacrifice sometimes. If your team scores 6 runs early in the game, like, I'm attacking, and I'm sure he does the same.
And here's what Verlander said about how he thinks the Tigers should handle Skubal's workload.
If I'm the Tigers, then I've got the best pitcher in baseball. I want them out there as long, like, ride that horse.
Yes.
Like, hell yeah. And that's the way I thought about it when I was pitching. Like, they're like, you're our guy. We want you to go every 5th day. We would skip the 5th starter. I mean, they would run me out there for 35, 36, 37 starts. Like, we have an extra off day, and they're like, hey, how you feeling? We're facing the Twins or Indians. Like, let's rock, Let's go on 5 days. I feel good. It's fun. It's great. Awesome. I loved it.
He would too. I'm sure. The way he talks about innings and stuff like that.
I'm sure he would.
So you fast forward to Saturday, May 31st, when Tarik Skubal finished 7 scoreless innings at 90 pitches against the Royals. He was shoving. He hadn't allowed a run in 16 innings, but manager AJ Hinch pulls Skubal at 90 pitches after 7 scoreless innings. He puts in Beau Brieske, who has given up 14 runs, 11 earned runs in 20 innings this season. Remember, Skubal, 0 earned runs in his last 16 innings. Brieske, 11 earned runs in 20 innings this season. Anyway, Brieske comes in, and it's a smart matchup play for AJ Hinch for a variety of reasons, including the fact that Brieske is good against left-handed hitters, and the Royals were going to pinch hit a bunch of left-handed hitters coming off their bench. So if you were going to go to the bullpen and you were going to go to a right-handed reliever, going to Brieske made sense because of his success against left-handed hitters. Additionally, once the Royals swapped their left-handed hitters for right-handed hitters and they brought their lefties into the game to pinch hit, then the Tigers would have been able to benefit by pitching someone like Tyler Holton in extra innings against those left-handed hitters, but it never got that far because Brieske gave up back-to-back hits to Nick Lofton and Vinny Pasquantino with 1 out in the 8th inning. The Royals took a 1-0 lead, and that's how they won the game. The Tigers only had 2 hits the entire game, but naturally, the question of the game was directed at AJ Hinch about the decision to remove Skubal at 90 pitches after 7 scoreless innings. I mean, the Royals, after the game, they talked about how it was a relief to get Skubal out of the game. Like, the opposing team was happy to see Skubal exit. What's better, Skubal's 91st pitch or Beau Brieske's first pitch? To the Royals, or at least to Nick Lofton, who talked about this, they'd rather see Brieske's first pitch than Skubal's 91st pitch. So why did AJ Hinch take Tarik Skubal out of the game rather than riding that horse like Justin Verlander suggested? Here's what AJ Hinch said about his decision.
Yeah, listen, it's way easier to just let guys go until they, can't go anymore. And we need all of our pitchers. I mean, we've been very disciplined and very thorough, explained it. When it doesn't work out in your favor, it doesn't mean it wasn't the decision wasn't made with some intent. I mean, obviously it's a long season. We got to run the race to get where we need to get to. All you really need to do is look around our rotation and the rotation around the league. That it's hard to get through the race. It's hard to get wire to wire without making some difficult decisions along the way. Unfortunately, in my position, I know more information of what's going on in the dugout in between innings, fatigue levels, where hydration, the long race that we're trying to run. So you make a call like that. If we had gotten through that game and won, there would be a question that comes up. So the nature of those decisions come as a result of what happens. Totally cool with that as part of it. But there's no easy solution other than assuming that the other way would have worked out perfectly fine, both in results-wise and health-wise. He just came off the longest start of his entire career. He's at 90 pitches. It's almost 90 degrees here, and we had a good matchup. It didn't work. It's part of it, and I understand the wrath that comes with it over reactionary.
Mark, what do you think about all that? The Justin Verlander comments, the fact that Verlander thinks Skubal might be special from a durability standpoint, the fact that Tarik Skubal hasn't thrown more than 100 pitches in a start this season, the A.J. Hinch decision in the game against the Royals, and then the A.J. Hinch comments. Take it away, partner.
All right. So, look, I'm going to have some pretty strong opinions on this, and I'm going to ask you some questions that demand short answers. But I'm going to call total bullshit on the fans about this. I'm going to explain a few things. You don't have to like what I have to say, but facts are facts. So the Detroit Tigers are 70-34 since August 11th of 2024. You think that happened like with pixie dust and magic and dartboards? And there's a strategy being employed here. There's a long-term strategy being employed. Did A.J. Hinch win the World Series? Did he go to the World Series more than once? Did he build a team from scratch before? Does he understand how to manage players? Of course he does. This isn't an accident. This has been calculated. So the fact that he took Tarik Skubal out in 90-degree heat after he had thrown the first complete game of his career after 90 pitches, and he turned it over to a player from a player development standpoint that was closing playoff games for him last year, it comes off his best one-inning outing of 2025 and gives him an opportunity to build upon that. People, this is how A.J. Hinch puppet masters. If you don't like it for one day, too damn bad. This is how it rolls. So let me ask you this question. If the pitcher who has already had flexor tendon issues, who had a TJ in college and is throwing the highest workload of innings of his career, all of a sudden can't pitch in October and you made it there, are you going to be mad? Are you going to yell that they overused him? Are you going to second guess the manager who's been the primary reason that all these things happened? People need to think in dimension. It's one game in May and he asked somebody to step up and do something and they didn't. It happens. It happens every day in baseball. The bottom line is you got to be adults. So let me ask you this other question. If Skubal ends up needing TJ because they overuse him, how much money do you think it would cost them, Evan? How much money would it cost Tarik Skubal if going into his free agent year, he was coming off his second TJ plus flexor tendon? How much money would that cost him in total dollars? Answer that question for me.
It would cost Tarik Skubal a lot of money, but it would guarantee the Tigers re-sign him. I'll tell you that much. It would guarantee the Tigers re-sign him, but it would cost him a ton of money. No, I mean, he's on pace to be a $400 million pitcher once he gets to free agency. And yes, if he were to blow out his arm and need another Tommy John surgery, he's not making $400 million, not even close. Like, him getting to $400 million, which is very, very real. That is a very real possibility. It depends on two things, production and health. And the production has been there. And it seems like it's going to continue to be there with no signs of slowing down. The health piece, that is the other factor here. And if he doesn't stay healthy, he's not going to get paid his $400 million like he's on pace to get paid. So he's got to stay healthy. It's a big part of that equation.
So to manage his long-term health, I would say it's worth somewhere between $150 and $200 million. So if you're Tarik Skubal, yeah, I know you wanted to pitch the eighth, but big picture, being protected, being able to pitch in September and October and for the future, trying to manage your health and your stress load. Think it's a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, Mark, how about this? Only twice this season has a Tigers starting pitcher reached 100 pitches. Jackson Jobe threw 100 pitches, May 12th. It was a 14-2 win over the Boston Red Sox. Jack Flaherty threw 108 pitches, May 22nd, in a 7-0 loss to the Cleveland Guardians. 3 starts later, Jackson Jobe, elbow injury. So I'm not saying that 100 pitches is like this death mark for pitchers, but at the same time, like, if you can protect the guy more often than not, why not protect him? And if that means Tarik Skubal, you don't get the 8th inning because we don't want you to go above 100 pitches right now, I get it. Like, and also too, you look at the extra rest that he's been given. He's only started on regular rest, 4 days rest, 3 times in his 12 starts. and he's not going to be on regular rest his next start. He starts on Friday. He was supposed to start on Thursday. They're going to push him back and give him an extra day. They've been doing that to kind of keep him healthy and to try to keep him preserved for the long run. Again, like AJ said, that long race they have to run. Again, this is the end of May. This is not the middle of October. If this is the middle of October in a 0-0 game against the New York Yankees in the Bronx at Comerica Park, like wherever it may be, Tarik Skubal is getting that ball for the 8th inning. I guarantee it. But right now it is late May and they're trying to run the long race. To get to that point, to get to the ALCS against the New York Yankees, you need Tarik Skubal to stay healthy for the full season. You cannot have a Jackson Jobe type elbow injury where you're on the shelf for a month, probably more like 2 months. Like that cannot happen to Tarik Skubal. He is such a big piece of this team, both behind the scenes and when he's on the field. You lose a guy like that, it could derail your entire season. So playing it safe, being as conservative as possible. Nobody has all the answers either, right? This is the great mystery of pitching. Like Tarik Skubal taking the ball and throwing 105 pitches and getting through the 8th inning. Like, I don't know, like, does it really make that much of a difference? Maybe it does, but maybe it doesn't. But at the same time, you'd rather err on the side of caution rather than push a guy too much and then end up getting hurt on the back end. So I think what AJ Hinch is doing is smart. I think it's fair to ask the question. I think it's fair to wonder. It's fair to be curious. It's fair to want to know why the ace of the Tigers staff, the best pitcher in the world, isn't going back out there to try to lock down a win against a division rival. Those are fair questions to ask. But I think you got to take a step back and you got to look at the reasons why the Tigers are doing it. And again, I guarantee you, and there is no way that if it's the ALCS against the New York Yankees in the middle of October, Tarik Skubal's coming out of that game in a 0-0 scoreless tie going into the 8th inning after 90 pitches through 7. Like, he's just not coming out of the game. But again, this is late in May. The Tigers are trying to run the long race.
As far as Justin and what he had to say, first of all, we want to talk about a unicorn. Justin Verlander in the last 2.5 decades of Major League Baseball is a damn unicorn. Let's be really blunt about it. At the same time, go take a look at the last 5 years of Justin Verlander's career and remind me what the injury history is, because it's long and ugly. Okay. So a matter of time. Everybody's got only so many fastballs in their arm. And the fact that AJ's trying to conserve them. And if you've ever thrown in repetitive use circumstances, if you don't think that pitches in the 8th inning and pitch 90 to 100 is more stressful than pitch 0 to 50, then you've really never thrown a baseball very hard in your life. So, all I'm saying is, people, breathe. It's okay. If you're trying to build something long term, and you're trying to protect it, preserve it, and make sure it's useful in a long-term way. They're playing for October now as much as they're playing for May. And if you don't like it, I get it. You're not right, but okay. All right, let's jump into question 2 of the big 2. Parker Meadows is expected to return from the injured list for Monday's series opener against the Chicago White Sox. So we're going to find out the answers to these questions, but who's going to get sent out? What players should be on the hot seat? And what's going on moving forward?
So it's not official yet as we record on Monday morning, but I'm told Parker Meadows will be activated for Monday's game against the White Sox and Justyn-Henry Malloy will be optioned to Triple-A Toledo. So until I hear otherwise, that is the transaction that's coming. That's what I've heard. It's what I've been told. And it's what I'm reporting here on the podcast. So let's go from there. Parker Meadows returning is massive for the Tigers. He's their everyday center fielder, their leadoff hitter. Last season, the Tigers had a 49-26 record when Meadows started, including a 33-11 record when he recorded a hit. He was worth 2.2 F4 in 80 games. That's nearly 4.5 F4 in a full season. He hit .299 with a 142 WRC plus in his final 50 games after coming back from Triple-A Toledo with the swing change. Elite defense in center field. Elite speed on the bases, a real hitter in the box. Like, this guy, Parker Meadows, is a game-changing player. So the best team in baseball is about to get better. He's been injured since February 22nd with a right upper arm nerve issue. Remember, it was that nerve that wouldn't activate for the longest time, and then it finally woke up. He's completed 8 games on rehab assignment, getting 33 plate appearances and 37 innings in center field, and the Tigers have determined he's ready to go. He will be in the starting lineup for Monday's game against the White Sox. As for Justyn-Henry Malloy, optioning him makes sense from a positional standpoint. Like, you bring back Parker Meadows, so there's an everyday center fielder. That's another outfielder in the mix. You pretty much have to play Riley Greene in left field and Kerry Carpenter in right field, because you have the logjam of Spencer Torkelson, Colt Keith, and Gleyber Torres occupying first base, designated hitter, and second base. So you can't get Kerry any DH at bats if you want Tork, Keith, and Torres in the lineup at the same time. And if Kerry is in right field, then Jayhen cannot play right field. And if Colt or Tork, if they're at the DH first base spot, then Jayhen can't get any at-bats at first base or DH either. There's just not a spot for him on the roster, aside from being a guy who comes in off the bench to hit lefty relievers late in games, but then he's a liability on defense late in games. And that's not what you want if you're playing in a close game. So the Tork, Keith, Torres situation, it really creates a problem for other players. And I've asked behind the scenes, and I've been told Gleyber Torres is not a third baseman. I'm told his arm isn't good enough and he doesn't move well enough to play the hot corner. However, if Gleyber Torres did play third base, which he has refused to do multiple times throughout his career, that would really free things up for a guy like Jayhen or Wencio Perez. But instead, you had that log jam of Tork, Keith, Torres at first base, second base, designated hitter. Kerry is forced to play right field almost every day. And then you have a guy like Jayhen on the outside looking in. It's a tough business. I like Jayhen. He's had some really big hits in some big moments this season. I don't think we've seen the last of him. I do think putting up quality plate appearances late in games, whether it's getting a hit, drawing a walk, or just battling for like 7, 8, 9, 10 pitches against either a righty or a lefty reliever late in the game, I think that could be a role for him on this team at some point in the future, just because the quality of his plate appearances are really good. And he's come up in some really big moments. He's got that calm heartbeat. I like everything that I'm seeing from Jayhen in those kind of moments, in those big moments. I like what I see, and there could be a role for him in that way. But for now, he's headed back to Triple-A Toledo. That's the roster move. I mean, from what I'm told, it's Parker Meadows in, Jayhen out. But Mark, there could be other players on the hot seat moving forward, because there are some questionable performances that we probably need to discuss.
Yep, we're going to discuss them in a minute. Let's discuss Jayhen for a second. A personal favorite of both Evan Petzold and Mark Gorash, for every reason that you just described. Weirdly, I think a few weeks in Toledo may be good for Jayhen. Kind of lost the power stroke. And I think consistent at bats every night, maybe 60, 80, 100 at bats, probably be really good for him. And when he comes back, I think he'll be a more complete hitter. I think we have not seen the last of Justyn-Henry Malloy. He is also a personal favorite of AJ Hinch, for every reason that you described. The Tigers do have some circumstances that they need to start being honest about. They probably are behind the scenes pretty honest about. Let's go over them. At third base right now, you're probably going to see a platoon of Javi Baez and Zach McKinstry, almost Gold Glove level caliber defense. The hitting, well, we'll just have to see about the hitting. Been good so far. Doesn't mean it's going to be good going forward. The question starts becoming, how useful is Andy Ibanez? And we both like Andy Ibanez. He does a lot of things, and he's done a lot of really good things in his career here. But let's confront the elephant in the room. Since July 1st, 2024, Andy Ibanez's slash line is 197, 293, 307 and 212 plate appearances. It's not a small sample size anymore. It is a very specific responsibility, but to be really honest with you, he's not hitting a lick. Now let's transition over to shortstop. The question is, do you trust Javi Baez to play a lot of shortstop? I'm not sure we do or we don't. Trey Sweeney's been playing there. And if you take out the 14 for 28 at the start of May, he's 27 for 155 on the season. That's a 175 batting average. And on the season, he is a 0.93 ISO, which means he almost never hits for power. He does walk a little bit. He's a -2 OAA defensively, a -6 defensive run save. So you think Trey Sweeney's playing pretty well, but is he? Really? He's not.
I think it's a fair point to talk about both of these players, though, to bring this up about Andy Ibanez and to bring this up about Trey Sweeney, too. And if you even dig deeper into Andy Ibanez's numbers, like look at him just against left-handed pitchers. Remember, that is his role on this team, is to hit lefties. Andy Ibanez, since July 21st, 2024, against left-handed pitchers, he is hitting 198 with 2 home runs, 13 walks, and 23 strikeouts in 73 games. That's 132 plate appearances against left-handed pitchers. It is a 198 batting average and a 572 OPS and a not-so-nice 69 WRC+. That's Andy Ibanez against left-handed pitchers since July 21st, 2024. A 69 WRC+. Andy Ibanez used to be Barry Bonds against lefties, but he hasn't been for the last 316 days. He does have one minor league option remaining, so he can be sent down to Triple-A Toledo. Trey Sweeney, he's hitting .225 with a .602 OPS in 57 games this season. He is worth -5 defensive runs saved at shortstop. I don't really have anything else to say. Like, other than he's hitting .118 with 0 extra base hits in his last 17 games, spanning 56 plate appearances. But for me, it's about the .225 batting average and the .602 OPS and the -5 defensive runs saved throughout the entire 2025 season. That's what I got on Trey Sweeney. And then you go and you look at the third base position, right? Like, there are some questions that need to be answered at the third base position. And it has been year over year over year. Remember, we did the Nick Baton dance once upon a time. Like, who is going to play third base for the Detroit Tigers? Who can be an everyday player? They have not had an everyday third baseman since Jeimer Candelario. Like, that was a long time ago, people. You go look at what their third base production has been this season. It's 27th in baseball offensively, their production at third base. And it doesn't help that Matt Vierling got injured. And then Matt Vierling came back for 4 games it was, or something like that. And then now he's back on the shelf again with the same shoulder injury. It was a rotator cuff strain during spring training that caused him to miss like 3 months of time. And then he gets reinstated, comes back, plays in 4 games, and he's back on the IL May 27th with right shoulder inflammation. So he's sidelined again with the same shoulder issue. That hurts the Tigers at third base, but the production at third base hasn't been very good. So question marks at third base. It'd be great if Gleyber Torres could just slide over. But questions at third base, questions at shortstop, like, those are fair questions to ask. And then when you have a guy in Andy Ibanez who is supposed to be a lefty masher coming off the bench and in the starting lineup, he's not mashing against lefties anymore. He hasn't mashed against lefties in 316 days. It's been a really long time, like a 69 WRC plus since July 21st, 2024. That's Andy Ibanez against lefties. That's concern because that is his role on this team. So, Mark, I think totally fair to bring up questions about both Andy Ibanez and Trey Sweeney.
Facts are facts. We never hide from them here. We never have a problem admitting when we're wrong. But look, baseball's a very fun game because how you produce, it's right there for everyone to see. And if it's not there for everyone to see, it's pretty easy to dig and find out about it. So 212 plate appearances, not a small sample size for Andy Ibanez. And I think Andy Ibanez knows very well that he needs to start swinging the bat better because I think he's the next guy to go. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk to Dan Hasty. We're going to talk about these amazing, amazing prospects at West Michigan, and they are just taking the Midwest League by storm, and what went on this last week is pretty amazing. We'll be back in 60.
Everyone, I'd like to welcome Dan Hasty, the play-by-play broadcaster for the West Michigan Whitecaps, the Days of Roar podcast for the first time. He has been around Max Clark, Kevin McGonigle, Josue Briceño at the high A level all season, interacting with them every single day. And in case you haven't noticed, those 3 players are among the top prospects in baseball, and they're only getting better. Dan, thank you for joining the show. How much fun are you having right now?
Well, thanks for having me on the show. It's always fun when you can join a show that you're an active listener to. So this is fun. No, but to answer your question, I mean, it was easily the most highly anticipated team that West Michigan has had in my time there. But just looking back through the history of that franchise and that organization, I mean, their biggest names were like guys like Ben Grieve and like Fernando Rodney and guys like that. So the idea, and we're certainly seeing now with the Tigers' ability to develop, now, Riley Greene's in the big leagues, Spencer Torkelson's in the big leagues. And like that core of players, Tarik Skubal, those guys were all in West Michigan just a handful of years ago. And the way that they're developing now, their hit rates are going up. They're going to continue to go up. So, the last really good West Michigan team we had, like record-wise, was 2017. And they had the best winning percentage in all of pro baseball, major or minor league. And the only reason I bring it up with 2017 is because that year they had 17 future big leaguers on that roster. I mean, you only get to have 25 on your active roster at that time. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the majority of the guys on the team right now at the high A level are eventually going to be contributors at the big league level.
Just to kind of dig a little bit deeper into that, right? You've been doing this since 2015. Is this the best West Michigan Whitecaps team you've ever been a part of and you've ever seen then?
I'll say yes. And the reason is because Some of the other teams that were great either came out of nowhere or it was a case where they had, their peak a little early, but they also got by on a group that lacked the headliners that this group had. Going into the season, we thought that West Michigan was going to be exceptionally strong. And right out of the gate, they lose Kevin McGonigle, and Josue Briceño even spends some time on the injured list. But it hasn't mattered in the sense of they've kept winning ball games. And I know that's not the primary focus of what happens at the minor league level, but as soon as those players who were hurt came back, it was like they never left. I mean, as we sit here right now, we're talking about Kevin McGonigle, who's hitting 500. I know it's 10 games, but just to put that in perspective, the last 10 games, Josue Briceño has 7 home runs. Like, these are not numbers that are even on an exceptional level. Like, these are rookie mode numbers. These are video game numbers. And they're at the point where it's just obnoxious. Like, I don't think they're going to let Josue Briceño back in the city of Dayton after what he did this week.
Dan, I want to ask you some questions to try to give people perspective. I mean, these are a group of very, very special caliber players at West Michigan this year. But let's jump into Kevin McGonigle. You've had some really, really talented hitters that have developed into really talented hitters at the major league level. Probably the most storied at West Michigan was Riley Greene. But try to draw some parallels to what you saw from Riley Greene and what you're seeing from Kevin McGonigle. And how do they compare? Is McGonigle the best pure hitter you've seen in your decade at West Michigan, or am I overstating his skill level?
I don't think you're overstating it. I think you're onto something there. We've had some really exceptional offensive players. And, you mentioned Riley Greene and Spencer Torkelson and Colt Keith were all phenomenal in their own right. And again, we're talking about a guy who's played 10 games this year. And we also just watched him play against a team that was easily probably the worst team in the league. So take that for what you will. He's going to have a really interesting test this week because he's going up against Cleveland Guardians prospects. And I think we played them earlier this year, and every single starting pitcher they threw was a lefty. And McGonigle was not part of that series. By that point, he was on the injured list. So I think we'll get a pretty good idea of what he's looking like after this week. But last year, he hit 214. I mean, it was only 14 games. Then he broke a bone in his hand. So we hadn't gotten a chance to really see what made him the MVP of the Florida State League. We hadn't gotten a chance to see what had made him a top 30 prospect in all of baseball. And some people who firmly believe that this is a guy who could easily be in the conversation for the number 1 prospect in all of baseball about a year from now. Now, watching him hit, completely get it. Completely understand. It's so funny because Max Clark and Kevin McGonigle, who sort of travel in the same pack together, it's usually they're very much an odd couple, but it's not just off the field because they're very much, if you've ever seen that Lonely Island music video where Jose Canseco and Mark McGwire are doing their little song and Jose Canseco's all flash and dash. And then you look over and Mark McGuire's like, and I'm Mark. Like, that's literally what Max Clark and Kevin McGonigle's dynamic is. And it's so funny. But on the field, they're almost an inverse of each other, where Max is very strong in so many different areas. He can contribute to winning in every way possible. But his bat is still something that he's figuring out. I mean, he's got a great on-base percentage. He's very disciplined at the plate, and he's going to contribute that way. He's just trying to make more consistent hard contact, whereas McGonigle is walking hard contact. I mean, he is just waking up, rolling out of bed, and hitting 100 miles an hour shots with regularity. But like Max Clark and the inverse of Max Clark, he's working to fine-tune all the other areas of his game. So it's kind of fun to watch how the two complement each other.
what Kevin McGonigle has done has been incredible, especially over the last 7 games. He's hitting nearly 600. And also, too, like, he hasn't struck out in his past 5 games. So he is a guy who is going to put the ball in play all the time. Can he play shortstop, though? Because I think that's a big question that Tigers fans want to know. Can Kevin McGonigle be the shortstop of the future? Because if this hit tool is as real as it seems, Tigers could have a real guy at shortstop there for the long haul. Not just like a fill-in, but somebody who could be a long-term shortstop for a really long time, become an all-star at the big league level, playing that position, right? But the question is, can he stick at shortstop? What do you think there?
I think it's possible. And the reason that I can say that is because we've seen this happen time and time again with other players, especially ones taken from the high school ranks. You know, I think back to, and we use this example often in so many different ways around West Michigan. Parker Meadows is the poster child for this. To be able to grow at one level and figure out the game, but the nuances of it. And, you know, there was a time, and I'm sure Parker will tell you this as well, where he was nowhere near the defender that he is now. I mean, you're going to see it again. I know you saw it towards the end of last season, and he was one of the most valuable players on that major league roster. But when he was in West Michigan, he was nicknamed the baby giraffe. We forget about this. I mean, he played like a baby giraffe. He was still figuring out his body. He was still figuring out how to do the little things that baseball requires for you to be an upper echelon player in those areas. Now, Kevin McGonigle, he's still figuring out the shortstop position. But if you'd have told me 4 or 5 years ago that Parker Meadows should be winning a Gold Glove in Major League Baseball, I don't know if I'd believe it. But he's got the work ethic, a guy like Parker. And you also see that with Kevin McGonigle. He certainly works his tail off for things like that. And, you know, the way that the Tigers are currently constructed at that level, of course, there may be an opportunity to play shortstop. But AJ Hinch has shown that he wants guys to be able to move around the diamond. And I don't think even with a guy like McGonigle that's going to be any different.
So Dan, before we get into some other players, and there's just so many to get into, I mean, tell us a little bit about McGonigle's hands, his throwing arm. You get to see this every night. I want to get a little more specific. You know, can you give us at least a quick scouting report? You know, people either have good hands or they don't. They either have a good arm or they don't. So share with us a little bit what you've had an opportunity to see.
Good arm. Certainly, I think the arm is good. I think one of the things, and I think this is a good problem to have, is that sometimes the mistakes that we see a guy like Kevin make, they are the plays where the hard plays he actually makes fairly well. The routine ones, the ones where you just get a little bit too much time to think. Those are sometimes the ones where, you know, and I think a lot of players are like this. I don't think this is exclusive to any one particular player, where they have a little bit too much time to think and then they short arm something, or they get too much air, or their arm slot drops. But, you know, in terms of throwing arm is fine. I think it works fine for shortstop. I don't think it's going to be early 90s Travis Fryman where he's about to take Cecil Fielder's glove off over at first base with a rocket, but it's going to be good enough to play. And from a term of just getting to the baseball, the range he has, I think the range is good enough. I don't know if, I mean, not many guys have the range of a Javi Baez at shortstop, for example, but he's got enough where it could play there. The question just becomes is, as he grows into that position, will he be a good fit for that? Or does he go to third base? Does he go to second base? So I think he's going to be the guy that can play any one of those 3 positions. And that's sort of been the way that they've run business up at the big league level.
I think the biggest determinant of Kevin McGonigle playing shortstop is going to be Bryce Rayner. So we'll get into Bryce Rayner at the end of this, because you're going to see him before, you know, at some point in time, maybe before the end of this year. But talk to us a little bit about everybody's favorite future center fielder, Max Clark. You've got a chance to watch him quite a bit. You got an opportunity to watch him learn how to polish his game. Yes, you mentioned probably the single deficiency or something that we still need to see, which is a lot more hard contact. But Max Clark as an offensive player is annoying as hell. to play against. He just figures out ways to get on base, and there's havoc once he does. But talk to us a little bit about Max Clark's game from someone that watches him every night.
So here's what you need to know about Max Clark. Over the last 10 games, Max, and he'll be the first to tell you this, has been in a slump. He is hitting under 150 at the plate for the past week and a half. These are just the numbers that they are. But if you want to get an idea of how important it is for a player to be able to do other things rather than just hit the baseball hard, look at a guy like Max Clark. Not only can he play defense, although he really hasn't been tested a whole lot in center field. It's kind of funny. He hasn't really had to make any very difficult, high degree plays, but you know that's there. But he can run. He can throw. And during this 10-game stretch where he's not even hitting 150, his on-base percentage is 396. I would love to go in a slump where my on-base was 400. That's the kind of player that Max Clark is. They like to say that speed doesn't slump, but I like to think that it's more like plate discipline doesn't slump. If you can still get on base at that level when you are going through it, you're going to have a very long, successful major league career. So when I watch Max, the thing that really stands out to me is, first of all, there's an off-field component that's just well beyond his years. We can talk about that if you want. But as a player and as a hitter, the thing that stands out most to us, myself included, is the bat control. When he wants to put a ball somewhere on the field, he can do it. When all things are going exactly the way they're supposed to and everything's on time, Max Clark can literally look at where fielders are playing on the field in real time and put a baseball where he wants to. And you just don't see that type of hitting aptitude, that type of hitting IQ at the high A level. No less from a 20-year-old.
Josue Briceño, he won the Arizona Fall League Triple Crown, was the first person to ever do that. But tell me about the 3-homer, 4-hit game. Tell me about this guy behind the scenes. Tell me about the bat-to-ball skills, like what he does on the field that makes him special. Especially that 3-homer game, that was pretty incredible.
Yeah, I guess he's kind of like our Barry Bonds all of a sudden. The way that it came together for him, and there's actually a really cool story about it. A minor league baseball picked it up. Before the ball game, there was a young boy about 10 years old who had been undergoing cancer treatments. He came and met the players before the game and our coach, and he actually exchanged lineup cards, and he gave out a couple of these bracelets, and his name was Theo, and it had this hashtag swings for Theo, and Briceño actually wanted to wear his. So he wore his during the game, and not only did he become the first Whitecap player to hit 3 homers in a game since 2006, but he also stole home. And I spent an inordinate amount of time that night communicating with minor league baseball, trying with multiple people to find if this has ever happened before, and nobody could find it. So, he's already the owner of, I guess, an achievement that is unprecedented in every way, shape, and form. And moreover, it's not a fluke. He did it in Arizona, and I was talking to him about the 3-homer game. The first thing he said was, well, I did it in the fall league too. And I was like, of course you did. At 20 years old against guys who were 2, 3, 4 years older and big time prospects. Josue was known by people like us as a legitimate prospect, but he became a minor league baseball household name. And now to see what he's done is just special.
All right, Dan, so the big question is you got these 3 guys, Kevin McGonigle, Max Clark, Josue Briceño. How long until those 3 players are promoted to Double-A Erie? Because that is the question that every Tigers fan wants to know. When are these guys moving up the farm system?
So in a vacuum, they're probably at least worthy candidates to do that. But I think gone are the days where prospects are force-fed to higher levels. Think about how long it took for Spencer Torkelson to become a really valuable contributor at the major league level. He's top 10 in RBIs in the show. It was a case where he went to Toledo, and I think he hit about 220. And then the next spring training, he's making the everyday roster at the major league level. So I think what they want to do is they also want to institutionalize success, whether that's individual, team, or both. So I think that matters. I think moreover, with a guy like Max and Kevin McGonigle, I think there's also a special case exception there because we saw this when they went to West Michigan. They got moved together. And I think that there's something to being able to move those two together at the same time. I think they want to keep that nucleus on time. And really, they know that they're not going to be major league contributors this year. At least they don't think that's going to be the case, especially now that we're talking at the beginning of June. So could it happen? Yeah, of course. But odds are is we're talking about a couple of guys that will move at some point in the near future. The first half of the minor league baseball season is about 2.5 weeks away. The Major League Baseball All-Star break is about 6 weeks away. My guess is that somewhere during that time frame, that's when you're going to see those guys get promoted. Now, I don't think they want to move a guy like Clark when he's going through a slump. So I think they're going to let him course correct and figure that out. And because of that, I think that they'll keep McGonigle down at the level. Again, he's only played 25 games. He hasn't even played a full month at the high A level yet. Certainly he's showing that he can handle it from an offensive perspective. But, players are much more than their MILB.com player page can suggest. So he's still going to be learning a lot of the nuances of the game. And then you've got a guy like Briceño who is still learning how to also catch. He's also learning how to play first base. I mean, there's still a lot of learning and teaching that's going on with those guys that go far beyond what the numbers will tell you from the offensive perspective.
Dan, before we get you out of here, we've talked about the big three, but who else deserves credit in West Michigan? We've seen some good things from Izaac Pacheco, Peyton Graham, Seth Stevenson, but key in on Izaac Pacheco. What's been the big difference for him? Because this is a guy, people don't remember, he was a number 39 overall pick in the 2021 draft out of high school. And what he did last year versus what he's doing this year are two completely different things. He looks like he could be the real deal.
I guess Pacheco is on the Parker plan, right? I mean, 3-4 years in West Michigan, and then all of a sudden the light bulb comes on. And when it does, it burns bright. Izaac Pacheco has hit over 300 this year with power, with a 400 plus on base. I mean, he has been one of the best offensive players in the entire Midwest League, and a lot of people will like to say, well, when is Max Clark going up? When is Kevin McGonigle or Josue Briceño going to Erie? I think Izaac Pacheco is probably the best candidate to go up right here as we sit here and have this conversation because, he's been there for so long. He has the time. He's put in the time, the hours, the effort, the energy. So now I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if Pacheco goes sooner than later. But Izaac Pacheco's had a dynamite season. Couldn't be happier for him. He has grinded it out. He's got a great work ethic, and that's the reason why you knew it was coming. It was just a matter of when. Another guy that I like watching is an outfielder, Seth Stevenson, who he's always been known for his speed. I mean, he stole 70 bases a couple of years ago. He stole 60 bases in West Michigan last year. This year, he's almost to 20, but he's also doing it with power. And, on a team where you've got those big three horses, Seth Stevenson, who is, I think, 5'10". I think he's 5'10". We like to call him Professor Chaos, affectionately nicknamed from South Park. He's the second leading home run hitter among West Michigan Whitecap hitters. I mean, he's got 5 homers. He's on pace to hit about 15 this year. And with the speed that he has and with the other things he brings to the table, if he hits for power like that, he's a Major League Baseball player. So he's somebody that also deserves a lot of credit from the offensive end. But from the pitching side, I mean, they've gotten so much from their bullpen. I mean, I think, we talked at the beginning of this conversation about 17 big leaguers coming from one of the past West Michigan teams. When those numbers eventually come in on this particular group, this 2025 group, it's going to be a lot of relievers. There are just some disgustingly talented pitchers in that bullpen. And they have a tendency to move quickly in the system. You guys have seen this too. Some guys that have been pitching even as low A, shout out Buck Farmer, had become big leaguers later in that one particular season. So it is certainly possible that we see a lot of those guys because that's a big reason why West Michigan's winning so many ball games, because they have this psychological advantage because they know that their bullpen's going to be so good that either they're never going to give up a lead or they're going to keep their opponent at bay and give them time to rally, where you can see it reflected in the numbers. They're outscoring their opponents this year. I think the last time I checked, it was In the 8th inning of games this year, the Whitecaps have outscored their opponents 54-9. And that's psychological. You can't convince me that it isn't.
All right, Dan, thanks again for coming on the Days of Roar podcast. It's an honor to have one of the best broadcasters in the Midwest League and all of minor league baseball on this show. Hopefully we can do it again sometime down the road.
Happy to do it, fellas. That was fun.
Everyone, that was Dan Hasty, play-by-play broadcaster for the West Michigan Whitecaps. We have more to discuss about the Tigers with a focus on the starting rotation, but first, let's take a break.
All right, we're back. Dan was, as usual, one of my favorite guests, and nobody knows more about watching prospects for as long as Danny's done it in West Michigan than Dan Hasty. All right, I want to ask you a little bit about Matt Vierling. He's an important part of the team, but it's pretty ominous that he's gone back after 4 games on the injured list. I have some experience with these type of injuries myself and with my son, and I'm just curious if you've heard anything. It's usually a really, really bad sign if it deteriorated this quickly. I'm sure he's gone to see specialists. Are they telling you anything? Are you hearing any whispers about anything? Sorry to lose him for the year, but I'm just kind of curious. You're usually really good at being Dick Tracy.
Well, the vibe around this situation definitely feels like it could be a lost season, but the Tigers are not saying that at all right now. And I haven't personally talked to Matt Vierling. I don't think anybody in the media is talking to Matt Vierling since he's gone back on the injured list. But just from talking to people on the side, that's just kind of asking like, hey, like what actually could be going on here? I'm trying to dig for some more information. The Tigers seemingly like are saying that they expected this. Like it was, they expected some stops and some starts, and it wasn't always going to be this like smooth transition back into baseball, but like that doesn't really make sense to me. Like, I don't really know if that's just, you're saying it just because you got to say it at this point. I mean, it sure seems that way. Like, I don't really think that you rehab a guy for 3 months and then expect him to only be able to play 4 games before he's back on the injured list again. So it sounds like the Tigers are trying to take like a day-by-day approach with this. They want to rehab it. They want to see where things can go from here. But again, when you look at a guy who has a rotator cuff injury and he rehabs for 3 months and he comes back, and then within 4 games of playing in the big leagues, he's back on the shelf again, like that's just not a good sign. And to me, like the alarm bell immediately goes off to surgery. Now, I have never heard the word surgery spoken by anybody, but it just seems like that's where it could be headed when you consider it. This guy was down for 3 months, did a full rehab, and then played 4 games and was down again. Like that's just not a good sign. So again, obviously hoping for the best for Matt Vierling. He is a huge piece of the Tigers, both behind the scenes and on the field. He's coming off a career best season. He really could be a guy that holds down third base and gives you some stability there, but the Tigers don't have that in him right now because he's not on the field. He's on the injured list. So it's a real bummer for Matt Vierling. Obviously, I hope for the best. Hopefully, no surgery. Hopefully, it's just a little bit of rehab. It was a bump in the road. He can get back and be just fine and help the Tigers out the rest of the season. But to me, that just seems like more of like an optimistic view of things rather than like a realistic view.
I feel the same way about it. And like I said, pretty ominous. You don't go back on the IL after 4 games, and we're not hearing anything. So I would expect something probably not good to get announced here sooner than later. All right, let's transition into a different discussion. And it's something I've been hearing a few rumors about. But Jackson Jobe on the IL, little flexor tendon. What are the specifics of the injury? How concerning is it? When will he return? And let's keep perspective on the reality of what Jackson Jobe's 2025 season was going to look like from day one. And is there a little bit of, innings management also going on here, and when you really want Jackson Jobe to be burning his innings? So tell me what you know.
I think more than innings, you want Jackson Jobe healthy. So the fact that he's not healthy right now, that's a concern. Like, yes, it could benefit the Tigers from an innings management standpoint, as long as he comes back healthy from this, as long as he doesn't need elbow surgery coming back from this, right? Like, again, now the expectation is that he will be fine. He will be able to come back. He'll rehab for a month, and then maybe he'll do 3 weeks to, a month of rehab starts, and then he'll be able to jump right back into things. He's going to be shut down from baseball activities. He already has been. And then he's got to build himself back up, and then he's got to pitch in some rehab games, and then he can come back to the Tigers. It's a grade 1 flexor strain in his right elbow. So grade 1 strain, hopefully he's going to be all good, but we're going to wait and see on that. Because again, you go back to his May 23rd start, he said that he wasn't feeling his best physically after that start against the Cleveland Guardians. And then he goes out and he makes his most recent start. That's against the San Francisco Giants on May 28th. He didn't talk to reporters after the game. He wasn't seen in the clubhouse because he was getting evaluated. And sure enough, the Tigers had then shut him down. They put him on the 15-day injured list, got that flexor strain in the right elbow. The Tigers expect him to come back. But again, like, you never want your prized possession to be hurt, even if it does help you, managing the innings, right? So I think the one thing you got to do is you got to look at Logan Gilbert, Seattle Mariners right-hander. He sustained the same type of injury, a grade 1 flexor strain in his right elbow in late April. 1 month later, he threw 45 pitches in his first rehab start in late May, and he could return to the Mariners within 2 weeks from then. So you're looking at maybe a mid-June return. So for Logan Gilbert, injured in late April and possibly returning to the Mariners in mid-June, that's a total absence of about 7 weeks. So if Jackson Jobe follows the Logan Gilbert timeline, he projects to return to the Tigers in mid-July, possibly coming out of the All-Star break. The first game after the All-Star break is July 18th against the Texas Rangers at Globe Life Field. That's in Arlington, Texas. So if it is a Logan Gilbert type timeline, we could see Jackson Jobe coming back to the Tigers, being in the starting rotation right after the All-Star break. But again, that's if it's a Logan Gilbert type timeline. If it's not, if it's longer, who knows? And hopefully this is not a recurring issue where, he tries to make a rehab start and he still is feeling, issues in his arm. He's feeling soreness. Like, you do not want that to happen. So with a guy that is as prized as Jackson Jobe, top prospect, maybe future ace of the franchise, Tigers are going to need to be very, very careful with him. He's young. He throws really hard. He's got nasty movement on all of his pitches. He's a beast when he's on the mound, right? And he's struggled with some inconsistencies for sure, but his stuff is beast-like, and you want to protect that as much as you can. Hopefully it's nothing more than just 7 weeks, 8 weeks for Jackson Jobe.
Real short and sweet here. If you would have asked Scott Harris prior to the season how many innings you think Jackson Jobe could throw, optimum, ballpark it for me, Scott, he would have told you 100 to 125. Jackson Jobe's thrown 49 innings right now. He's got another 50 to 60 innings in him for the year. If he started throwing again post All-Star break, which is my prediction for him, that would put him at about another 50 to 60 innings. Do I think his body was tired? Do I think he had never had the intensity level of consecutive 50 innings level that he had to start this season? Damn right. Now, I had some stuff in spring training. Not shocked that it's been really hard on him. His entire body. He looked tired. His fastball had lost 2 miles to 3 miles an hour on it. His command was even less quality than it had been previously. But I'm not too worried about it, to be really honest with you. He's had a few nicks and bruises along the way in his first 3 seasons. And I think he learned a lot in the first 2 months of the year. I think he'll come back. He'll be better for it. I think there are a few things they'll work on with him on the side as he heals. And I expect to see him come back, like you said, post All-Star break. I want to get into the current state of the starting rotation. We're entering a week where we're going to have some pitching chaos. We're going to probably see Sawyer Gipson-Long return. I want people's expectations for that to be a little muted. My buddy John Verberg saw him throw in West Michigan. He was not the same pitcher in the 4th and 5th that he was in the 1st. He does throw a lot of breaking balls. He's very good, but he's also coming off 2 years of top pitching, and he's still building up. I'm just curious your take on the pitching chaos for this week, and where do you think it's taking us, Ev?
Yeah, not really much pitching chaos, actually. I mean, when the Tigers go into this series against the White Sox, they're going to have Jack Flaherty starting on Monday. That's in the series opener. And then Casey Mize will start Thursday in the series finale. And then the starters for Tuesday and Wednesday have not been determined, but Sawyer Gipson-Long is expected to start one of those games, probably on Wednesday. And then for the other game, that's Tuesday, the Tigers will employ their pitching chaos game, right? So maybe only one pitching chaos game, bullpen only game with 9 relievers, and then activate Sawyer Gipson-Long and send one of those relievers out. So you have 9 relievers for a bullpen only pitching chaos type game on Tuesday, Sawyer Gipson-Long on Wednesday. And you're right, Sawyer Gipson-Long, he has not pitched for the Tigers since September 2023. But he was really good when he did pitch for him. He had a 2.70 ERA, 8 walks, and 26 strikeouts in 20 innings in 4 starts in September. Changeup is nasty. That's a really, really good pitch for him. Doesn't throw super hard, but again, that changeup is devastating. But since he pitched for the Tigers September 2023. He underwent right elbow surgery in April 2024 and left hip surgery in July 2024. He's completed 5 starts during his rehab assignment, including 2 starts with Triple-A Toledo. He's going to be ready to go, and the Tigers are going to hand him the ball. I'm excited to see what Sawyer Gipson-Long can do. The Tigers internally are very, very high on him. I actually talked about this on last week's episode. I said, hey, once Sawyer Gipson-Long gets back, once Reese Olson gets back healthy again, like once the Tigers have their complete rotation and all their depth ready to go, I would not be surprised if the Tigers choose Sawyer Gipson-Long over Keider Montero for spot starts. I would not be surprised if Sawyer Gipson-Long becomes the new 6th starter. And that's once Reese Olson is back and Jackson Jobe is back and the Tigers have everybody healthy again. Because of the way the Tigers talk about SGL behind the scenes, they really, really like him. And not that they don't like Keider Montero, but I just think that they feel like Sawyer Gipson-Long is more polished than Keider Montero at this point. We'll see if that actually holds true. But we will see Sawyer Gipson-Long coming up in this series against the White Sox. And then the current state of the rotation, I mean, you got what you got. I mean, you do. You have Jack Flaherty, you got Casey Mize, you got Keider Montero, you got Tarik Skubal, you got Sawyer Gipson-Long. Like that's where the depth of the Tigers is paying off right now because they are able to reach out down to Triple-A Toledo and they're able to pick guys like Keider Montero and Sawyer Gipson-Long to help them out during this stretch. The one question is going to be Reese Olson. When does he come back? He's eligible to return already. And he's got that finger issue and it's causing him trouble to throw his changeup. He is still not throwing his full arsenal in bullpens. He is not throwing his changeup in bullpens. So Tigers are not going to send Reese Olson out to the mound without his changeup. Like they're just not going to do it. So he's fine. He's healthy, but he cannot throw his changeup right now because of the finger issue that he's had. So hopefully that can shore itself up pretty soon because you'd love to see him get back in the mix. And then when that happens, the Tigers are going to have a decision point to make. You know, you bring back Reese Olson. Do you send out Sawyer Gipson-Long or do you send out Keider Montero? And that's going to be a choice that they have to make at that point in time. Which pitcher do they want to send out? I wonder if maybe they send out Keider Montero because, again, behind the scenes, they really like what SGL has to offer and they like how polished he is right now. But we'll see how he is coming back from TJ, right? Like this is Tommy John surgery and hip surgery. You can't really talk about polish until you see it in a big league game and you see it sustained over a couple of starts. So we'll see, but I'm excited to get him back. I'm excited to watch him and I can't wait to see that changeup working again.
I think we need to give a shout out to Keider Montero, who's been really good in 6 out of his 8 starts. So I don't think we're sending him out too fast. He's never pretty. He's always effective. So want to also give a shout out now that we've played 2 months of the season. Riley Greene, Spencer Torkelson, 13 homers, 40 RBIs. I'm not sure that's been done by 2 teammates in Tiger history. We don't need to get into it too long, but I do think we need to appreciate it. What do you think?
Yeah, first off, I really do want to appreciate that stat, by the way, because I think it's important to appreciate the stat and where it comes from. Just to rehash, Spencer Torkelson and Riley Greene, they entered June as the only teammates in the American League to have both 13-plus home runs and 40-plus RBIs. It is the first time the Tigers have had 2 players with 13-plus homers at the start of June. In franchise history. Remember the years of Miguel Cabrera and Prince Fielder, Miguel Cabrera and Victor Martinez. And you can even go further back, to Tigers legends of your day, Mark. What Spencer Torkelson and Riley Greene are doing is incredible. And we do have to give credit, though, to where that stat comes from. Peter Chase, Director of Baseball Communications for the Tigers, he is a stat monster. When you look at what he does in the game notes, they've been posting them at Detroit Tigers PR on social media, on X, formerly known as Twitter. Go check him out. Peter Chase puts them together. He's been outstanding, by the way, this year. Peter Chase has been awesome to work with as the Tigers' new baseball communications director. He had time with the Boston Red Sox in his past, the Chicago Cubs in his past, and now he's here with the Detroit Tigers, and he has put together some incredible notes. So hat tip to you, Peter Chase. Hat tip to Spencer Torkelson. Hat tip to Riley Greene. It's been awesome watching the Tork and Greene show in 2025. It is everything that Tigers fans dreamed that it would have been when these 2 guys were coming up the system together. And now we're finally seeing it. And don't forget, by the way, as well, the Dylan Dingler show is real also. It's so easy to forget. Dylan Dingler and Spencer Torkelson were in the same draft together. The Tigers selected Spencer Torkelson, and then they selected Dylan Dingler. And you saw Spencer Torkelson, Riley Greene, Dylan Dingler. Those guys came up together. They moved up from, West Michigan to Erie together. The high A level to the double A level. And then Riley Greene and Spencer Torkelson continued to move together while Dylan Dingler stayed back. And he had to refine his game. And now Dylan Dingler is here. He has arrived. Dylan Dingler is like a sneaky dark horse all-star candidate. So again, hat tip to Spencer Torkelson-Riley Greene, Peter Chase for that incredible stat and all that went into it, from the home runs and the RBIs and the data dive to make that stat happen, to bring that to life. But also shout out to Dylan Dingler. He was a part of that group early on, and now here he is. Dylan Dingler seems like he's the real deal as well.
100%. Ding is just killing it. And you keep waiting for it to end, and it never ends. That bat has been great, and the defense has been outstanding. I am happy Jakey's back, though, and if you don't understand the value of Jake Rogers, you didn't watch the game yesterday. Lastly, I want to give a special shout out to Tigers PR from my standpoint, how they treated my friends, Jed and Charlotte Oliver, the last week. They made it a memory of a lifetime. They did so many things for them, got them on the field, got them a jersey, upgraded their seats. Jed, I know, gave away his seats to quite a few games to Tiger fans. I got to take him to the last game of the Giants series. We had a great time together. I've known Jed for a decade. His better half, Charlotte, makes Jed look so much better. I know they had a great time. We talked. We got to eat dinner. And I want to thank Ben Fiddleman personally and his entire staff for what a beautiful job they did making somebody's life better and making a lifetime memory for them. All right, Ab, it's time to get the hell out of here. I want to remind everybody to like, share, rate, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and especially YouTube. You can always find us embedded in every single Evan Petzold article at thefreep.com. You might even see one handsome face, one old face when you go there, because we have a lot of digital content up there now. I'd like to thank the editor of the Free Press, Nicole Avery Nichols, our producer, the magic man, Robin Chan. Shout out to my amazing grandsons and the spectacular mommy of the month, Savannah Petzold. And until next week, peace.